Imagine that you are sleeping deeply. Suddenly, something wakes you. You open your eyes, but everything looks different. The colors are more vivid, the sounds sharper. You get up from the bed and look back, and then you see your own body still lying there, motionless. This is the moment of separation, the instant when your soul disconnects from the physical body and begins a journey that no one can make for you. Edgar Cayce, known as the sleeping prophet, described this moment with a precision that sends chills. During his trances, he accessed information about what happens immediately after death, and what he revealed is nothing like what most religions taught you. There is no bearded judge waiting for you. There are no angels with trumpets announcing your arrival. What there is you, your pure consciousness, and a completely new reality unfolding before your eyes. In the first seconds after leaving the body, the soul experiences absolute freedom. There is no more physical pain. There is no more tiredness. If you died sick, the sense of relief is so intense that many souls describe it as ecstasy. It is like taking off a heavy coat you wore your whole life without realizing how much it weighed. You feel light, free, alive in a way you never were while you were bound to the flesh. But this initial euphoria lasts only a short while, very short indeed, because shortly after comes the confusion, the deep disorientation that catches most souls completely unprepared. You look around and recognize the place you are. It is the hospital room, or your home, or the site of the accident. But something is wrong. The people around you cannot see you. You try to speak and no one answers. You try to touch someone, and your hand passes through them as if you were made of mist. According to Cayce, this is the most critical moment of the entire post-death journey, because it is here that most souls make the first mistake. They panic. They start to scream, to call for help, to try desperately to return to the body. And the harder they try, the more trapped they become. It is like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. The sensation of being conscious but invisible is terrifying. Imagine being at a party full of people, talking with your friends, and suddenly realizing that no one hears you. No one sees you. You don't exist for them. This is the reality the newly separated soul faces. And without preparation, without knowledge, the natural reaction is fear, despair, attachment. Cayce explained that in this initial state, the soul is still strongly connected to the physical plane. You can see everything, hear everything, feel the emotions of the living people, but you cannot interact. It is like you are on the other side of a thick glass, banging on the window while the people on the other side continue their lives without noticing your presence. That impotence generates anguish that can last hours, days, or even years, depending on the level of the soul's attachment. And here is a detail that few people know. Time does not work the same way for the disembodied soul. What seems like 5 minutes might be eternity. What seems like a day may pass in the blink of an eye. Temporal perception is completely distorted because you are no longer bound by the laws of three-dimensional physics. You are in an intermediate state, in a transition zone where the rules are different. During these first moments, the soul also begins to perceive presences, some luminous, others not so much. There are beings who approach, voices that call, lights that pull. And this is where the real test begins, because not everything that glitters is light. Not every voice that calls wants your well-being. Cayce warned, there are entities in the astral plane that feed on the fear and confusion of newly arrived souls. They know exactly how to disguise themselves, how to seem friendly, how to offer help when they really want only to keep you trapped. The disorientation is so intense that many souls don't even realize they have died. They continue trying to live as if they were still alive. They try to sleep, but don't feel sleepy. They try to eat, but don't feel hungry. They try to follow their routine, but nothing works. It's a loop of frustration that only ends when the soul finally accepts the new reality. And acceptance is the first step. Without it, there is no advance. Without it, you remain stuck in this limbo between worlds, watching life continue without you while screaming in a void that no one hears. The moment of separation defines everything that comes after. If you enter this process with fear, resistance, and attachment, your journey will be painful. If you enter with acceptance, consciousness, and detachment, the transition flows naturally. That is why Cayce insisted so much on the importance of preparation in life. Knowledge is power. And in the moment of death, that knowledge can be the difference between freedom and prison. Do you know the story of Lot's wife? The biblical passage where God tells the family to flee Sodom without looking back, but Lot's wife disobeys, looks back, and turns into a pillar of salt. For centuries, people interpreted this as a simple lesson on obedience. But Edgar Cayce revealed something much deeper. This story is an exact metaphor for what happens with the soul after death. Looking back is not just a mistake. It is the mistake, the most serious, the most common, the most devastating. In the first moments after leaving the body, the soul experiences an overwhelming temptation. It is like there is a magnetic magnet pulling you back to the physical body, to the life you knew, to the people you love, to the problems you left unresolved. And most souls don't resist. They look back, and when they look, they become trapped. Cayce described this moment with surgical precision. He said there is an energetic connection, a silver cord, that links the soul to the physical body during life. At the moment of death, this cord breaks. But if the soul looks back with attachment, with the desire to return, with fear of moving forward, it creates a new kind of connection, a ghost connection. An energetic bond that should no longer exist, but exists because you feed it with your attention. Let me explain it in a way that makes sense in your daily life. Have you ended a relationship but kept stalking the person on social media, checking stories, looking at photos, torturing yourself with the life they're living without you? Then you know exactly what looking back is. It is maintaining a connection that should have been cut. And the more you look, the harder it gets to move on. With death, it works exactly the same way. Only the consequences are infinitely worse. When the soul looks back, it doesn't simply see the body. It sees everything. The loved ones weeping, the unresolved things screaming for attention, the missed opportunities, the regrets in high definition, and each emotion that arises fuels the attachment. Each thought of, "I should have done differently," is an invisible chain wrapping around your essence. What makes this error so terrifying is that it does not happen all at once. It is progressive, insidious. You look once, just to make sure. Then you look again, because you got worried. Then again, because you can't help caring. And before you realize, you are no longer transitioning. You are stuck, trapped between two worlds, belonging to none. Cayce revealed that the souls who make this mistake enter a state called earthbound, tied to the earth. They remain trapped on the lower astral plane, unable to ascend to higher dimensions, yet also unable to fully return to the physical plane. It is like being stuck in a corridor without doors. You see the light at the end, but you cannot reach it. You see the life you left behind, but you cannot participate. And here is the part no one tells you. Those trapped souls are responsible for most paranormal phenomena. Apparitions, voices, objects moving by themselves, sensations of presence. They are not demons. They are ordinary human souls who made the mistake of looking back and now cannot move on. The intensity of this imprisonment varies. Some souls remain trapped for days, others for decades, the worst ones for centuries. Cayce described souls who still wander the places where they lived hundreds of years ago, stuck in an eternal repetition of the same routine, unaware that the world changed completely around them. They are so focused on the past that they have lost any sense of the present. The most tragic part of all this is that the mistake is reversible, but the trapped soul doesn't know that. It thinks it is condemned. It thinks there is no way out. And that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because in the spiritual plane, thought is reality. If you believe you are trapped, you are trapped. If you believe there is no way, there is no way. The mind creates the prison, and only the mind can destroy it. So why do so many souls fall into this trap? Because no one prepared them. No one explained that death is not the end, but a transition. That you are not losing everything, you are just changing form. That the people you loved will continue their lives, and you will meet them again in due time. But without that knowledge, attachment wins, fear wins, and the soul looks back. The lesson of Lot's wife was not about blind obedience. It was about conscious detachment. It was about the courage to move forward even when every fiber of your being wants to cling to what was left behind. Because looking back, at the moment of death, doesn't turn you into salt. It turns you into something worse. A soul lost between worlds, invisible to the living, unable to reach the light, imprisoned by your own resistance to accept that everything changed and will never be as it was before. There is a reason why people close to dying start talking about the past. They revisit old memories, recall forgotten faces, cling to small details from decades ago. It is not just nostalgia. It is the soul preparing for the separation, or desperately trying to cling to what it knows. Edgar Cayce was crystal clear on this point. Attachment to earthly memories is one of the greatest traps of the post-death state. Because memories are not just recollections, they are energetic anchors. Each memory loaded with intense emotion functions as an invisible rope tying you to the physical plane. And the stronger the emotions, the thicker the rope. Think about it. You have that fight that was never resolved with your brother, that forgiveness you never asked for, that declaration of love stuck in your throat. When you die, those emotions do not die with you. They remain suspended, pulsing, demanding resolution. And the soul, newly freed from the body, feels each one of them amplified 1,000 times. On the physical plane, the body cushions your emotions. Biology acts as a filter. You feel anger, but the body tires you out. You feel sadness, but sleep takes over. You feel love, but routine distracts you. When you leave the body, that filter disappears. Emotions become pure, intense, inescapable. And if you haven't processed those emotions in life, they explode in your face the moment you cross to the other side. Cayce described souls that spend years, literally years, trapped in a single memory. The father who can't overcome the guilt of being absent. The mother who can't accept leaving her children behind. The betrayed husband who clings to resentment like it's oxygen. These souls are stuck in a loop, reliving the same scene over and over, unable to move forward because they can't let go. And it's not just the bad memories. The good ones also trap you, sometimes even more so. That perfect marriage, the successful career, the dream home, the grandchildren you adored. When everything in your earthly life was wonderful, the temptation to cling is enormous. Why would you want to leave all of that behind? Why would you want to move on to an unknown place when everything you love is here? But here's the harsh truth you need to understand. You can't take anything with you, not the achievements, not the relationships, not the memories. The only thing that crosses death with you is your consciousness. And if your consciousness is entangled in earthly attachments, you don't cross completely. You get stuck halfway. The most dangerous emotions, according to Cayce, are three: guilt, fear, and possessiveness. Guilt keeps you tied to what you did or didn't do. Fear paralyzes you in front of the unknown. Possessiveness makes you believe that people, places, or things belong to you. And all these emotions have something in common. They feed on the past. They keep you looking back when you should be looking forward. Let me tell you something that might sound strange, but makes perfect sense when you stop to think. The most intensely haunted houses, the ones with constant paranormal activity, aren't necessarily where violent tragedies happened. They are where very attached lives happened, where residents spent decades, grew deep roots, loved every brick of that place. The violence of death may create temporary ghosts, but excessive love, intense attachment, creates permanent ones. The soul, trapped by memories, starts to relive the past as if it were the present. She wakes up in the morning and makes coffee like she always did, even without a body to drink it. She sits in her favorite armchair, even if new residents have placed different furniture there. She waits for her husband to come home from work, even if he died decades ago. Time no longer exists for her. There is only the endless loop of a routine she can't abandon. And the cruelest part of all this is that those memories no longer bring joy. They bring only the pain of absence. It's like watching a movie of your life knowing you'll never be able to step into it again. It's like feeling thirsty while looking at water you can't drink. The memory turns from treasure to torture. Cayce taught that the only way to avoid this trap is to practice detachment in life. Not detachment in the sense of not loving, not living, not caring, but detachment in the sense of understanding that everything is temporary, that you are a traveler, not an owner, that experiences are meant to be fully lived, but also to be released when their time is up. Every memory you carry loaded with unresolved emotion is extra baggage you'll try to drag to the other side, and the more bags you try to carry, the heavier the journey becomes. Until a point comes where you simply can't move anymore. You stay there, stuck, buried under the weight of your own past, unable to take a single step toward the future. Attachment to earthly memories turns potential paradise into a self-imposed prison, because you are not held by external forces. There are no demons holding you back, no physical chains. There is only you, and your refusal to accept that what once was will never be again. And until you accept that, until you let go, you don't move forward. It's that simple. Death is not a leap. It's a climb, and like every climb, it has stages. Edgar Cayce mapped these stages with a precision that seems to come from someone who made the journey and returned to tell about it. He described 3 distinct zones of transition, 3 levels that every soul must pass through. And each of these zones has its own dangers, its own traps, its own tests. The first zone is what Cayce called the lower astral plane. It's the level closest to the physical. It's where you arrive immediately after leaving the body. Imagine a giant airport, full of people in transit, some knowing where they're going, others completely lost. That's exactly what it's like. This is the most dangerous place of the entire journey, because confusion is greatest here, attachment is strongest, and the temptation to go back is irresistible. In the lower astral plane, everything still feels physical. You see structures, places, people, but it's all a projection, a collective mental construction created by the souls passing through. It's like a video game where the scenery is rendered by the consciousness of the players. And because most souls arriving here are still strongly tied to earthly life, the environment reflects that. It looks like Earth, feels like Earth, but it's not Earth. It's in this first zone that the initial encounters happen. You cross paths with other souls, some heading in the same direction as you, others going the opposite way, trying to return, others still, completely still, looking around, not knowing what to do. And this is where the dangerous interactions begin. Because not everyone offering help truly wants to help. Cayce warned about entities that inhabit this zone specifically to confuse newcomers. They disguise themselves, appear as people you knew, as spiritual guides, as angels, but their intention is to keep you there. Why? Because confused souls emit energy, and these entities feed on that energy. The more fear you feel, the more nourishment you provide. It's a parasitic ecosystem. If you manage to cross the first zone without getting stuck, you reach the second, the mid-astral plane. Here, things change drastically. The environment stops feeling physical and begins to feel more fluid, more mental. It's like leaving a concrete city and entering a dreamlike landscape. Shapes dissolve. Colors vibrate in ways that don't exist in the earthly visible spectrum. Time distorts even more. In this second zone, something crucial happens. The life review. It's not an external judgment. No one judges you. You judge yourself. You relive every significant moment of your existence. But this time, you don't just feel what you felt. You feel what others felt because of your actions. Every joy you caused, you experience. Every pain you caused, you feel in your own skin. It's a devastating or transcendent experience, depending on how you lived. Many souls get stuck in this second zone because they can't process the review. Guilt crushes them. Regret paralyzes them. They begin creating mental scenarios of, what if I had done things differently? And those scenarios materialize around them as alternate realities that will never come true. They become trapped in simulations of possibilities that no longer exist. But if you can accept your life exactly as it was, with the successes and the mistakes, the moments of glory and those of shame, if you can look at all of it and say, I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, then you advance to the third zone. The upper astral plane is where things finally begin to make sense. Here there is no longer physical or even mental form as you know it. It's pure consciousness, pure energy, pure light. The souls that reach this level experience a peace that cannot be compared to anything in earthly life. It's like waking from a nightmare and realizing it was just a dream. The separation disappears. You understand that you were never alone, that you were never separate from the source, that everything was a grand illusion necessary for learning. But getting to this third zone is not automatic. Cayce was very clear. You are not lifted. You lift yourself. Progression depends entirely on your state of consciousness. If you are trapped in fear, guilt, attachment, anger, you cannot vibrate at the frequency required to access higher levels. It's basic spiritual physics. Low frequencies remain in low planes. High frequencies reach high planes. And here's something fascinating, Cayce revealed. You can move between these zones. It's not a linear journey from A to B to C. If you reach the second zone but then fall into despair, you can return to the first. If you reach the third but cling to earthly memories, you can descend. What defines where you are is not where you arrived, but your vibrational state in the present moment. There is a state worse than death, worse than any hell religions have invented. It is the state of being dead, but not accepting it, of being disembodied but still clinging to the flesh, of existing between worlds without belonging to either. Edgar Cayce had a name for this: earthbound. And it's exactly what it sounds like. When you make the mistake of looking back, when you're too attached to earthly memories, when you refuse to accept true guides and follow imposters, you don't advance. You stagnate. And that stagnation is not temporary. It's not like being stuck in traffic for half an hour. It's like being trapped in a tunnel with no exit, no light, no direction, for an undetermined time. Cayce described this state with details that make your skin crawl. The soul trapped between worlds is conscious, completely conscious. It sees the living, hears the conversations, feels the emotions, but it can't interact meaningfully. It's like being inside a glass dome, pounding on the walls while life happens on the other side. You scream, but no one hears. You cry, but no one sees. You exist, but are completely alone. And time becomes your worst enemy. Because in the earthbound state, you don't sleep. You don't rest. There's no pause. It's unbroken consciousness, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for years on end. Imagine being awake non-stop for a week. Now imagine being awake for a decade or a century. The mental exhaustion it causes is indescribable. But here's the cruelest part. You can't give up. You can't just sleep and never wake up. Consciousness continues, relentless, tireless. And the longer you remain trapped, the harder it is to get out. Because you start to forget that another possibility exists. The state of imprisonment becomes your normal. You stop looking for exits because you believe there are none. These trapped souls develop obsessive patterns. They repeat the same actions indefinitely. The woman who died in the kitchen keeps preparing imaginary meals. The man who died in the office keeps trying to finish reports that will never be read. The child who died in the bedroom keeps playing with toys that no longer exist. They create ghost routines as a way to maintain some illusion of control over an existence that has lost all meaning. And the loneliness. God, the loneliness. Even when there are other trapped souls in the same place, communication between them is fragmented. Each is so immersed in their own mental loop that they barely notice the others. It's like being in a room full of people where everyone talks to themselves and no one hears anyone else. The presence of others doesn't ease the isolation. Sometimes it even worsens it, because it shows you that you're not alone in suffering, yet you remain incapable of truly connecting. Cayce revealed that the intensity of the entrapment varies according to the strength of the attachment. Lightly attached souls may remain stuck for months or a few years. Moderately attached souls may stay for decades. But deeply attached souls, those who died with heavy, unfinished business, with unprocessed violent emotions, with consuming obsessions, these can remain for centuries, literally centuries. Trapped in the same place, living in the same loop, while the world around them changes completely and they don't even notice, and there are consequences on the physical plane as well. These trapped souls emit dense energy. They create heavy energetic fields in the places they inhabit. Living people who enter those spaces feel it. That house where you inexplicably feel bad. That room that seems colder than the others for no apparent reason. That place where nothing works out, relationships fall apart, businesses fail, illnesses appear. Many times, there's a trapped soul there, radiating despair and confusion that contaminates the environment. But the worst part isn't what happens to those souls, it's what they do to try to escape. Desperate, confused, driven mad by loneliness, they begin trying to communicate with the living, and that's when serious problems begin. Before we continue, if you're looking to transform your reality from the inside out, I invite you to the Quantum Thinking Challenge. It's 21 intensive days during which you'll receive simple yet powerful techniques to raise your frequency, change mental patterns, and start manifesting everything you desire. Many have already reported amazing breakthroughs. Why not be next? Access is in the first pinned comment. Edgar Cayce spent years cataloging the signs of earthbound souls. And what he discovered is both fascinating and frightening, because these manifestations are not random. They follow patterns, and once you know the patterns, you start noticing them everywhere. The first and most common sign is cold spots. You're in a warm room, and suddenly a specific part of the space is freezing. It's not a draft. There's no physical explanation. It's a cold that feels like it comes from within your bones. This happens because trapped souls need energy to manifest, and the easiest way to get energy is by absorbing heat from the environment. So wherever they're trying to materialize, the temperature drops. Then there are the objects that move on their own, doors that open when you're sure you closed them, pictures that fall off the wall for no reason, things you leave in one place and find in another. Cayce explained that trapped souls try to interact with the physical world as they did when alive. But without a physical body, manipulating material objects takes enormous willpower. They can only move light things or do it during moments of extreme emotional intensity. Noises are another classic indicator. Footsteps in the hallway when no one's there, knocks on the walls, whispering voices you almost understand but not quite. These sounds aren't hallucinations, they're attempts to communicate. The trapped soul has no vocal cords but has consciousness, so it manipulates the air, creates vibrations, tries to form sounds the living can hear. It usually comes out distorted, incomplete, scary. But there are more subtle manifestations that many people ignore. That feeling of being watched when you're alone. That light touch on your shoulder that has no origin. That movement in the corner of your eye that disappears when you turn. These are souls trying to get attention without enough energy to fully manifest. It's like someone shouting through a thick wall. You sense something but can't define exactly what. Cayce always said, "Don't fear these manifestations. Have compassion." Because behind every slamming door, every flickering light, every strange sensation, there is a human consciousness trapped in a nightmare it can't end. And maybe, just maybe, your awareness of these manifestations is the first step toward helping that soul finally move on. Here's the question everyone asks when they learn about trapped souls. Is it permanent? If you make the mistake, if you become earthbound, is it over? Are you doomed to wander eternally between worlds with no chance of release? Edgar Cayce's answer was clear, emphatic, and full of hope. No. It is always possible to correct the mistake. There is always a way out. But finding that way requires something specific, a change in consciousness. Because here is the fundamental truth Cayce repeated in hundreds of readings. You are not trapped by external forces. You are trapped by your own mind, by your beliefs, by your attachments. And if your mind created the prison, it's your mind that can destroy it. The problem is, trapped souls usually don't know this. They believe they are condemned, and that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So how does redemption happen? Cayce described three main paths. The first is divine intervention, not in the religious sense of a God sending saving angels, but in the sense of evolved spiritual guides descending to the lower planes specifically to rescue lost souls. These guides are like firefighters of the spiritual world. They enter the densest, darkest, most despairing places, looking for those left behind. And when they find a trapped soul, they do something simple but powerful. They remind it of who it really is. The second path is intervention by the living. Competent mediums, people with developed spiritual sensitivity, can establish communication with trapped souls, and through that communication, they can guide, calm, and convince the soul to move on. This is not entertainment. It's not a show. It's serious and dangerous spiritual work because you're dealing with desperate, confused, sometimes aggressive entities. The third path, and perhaps the most important, is spontaneous awakening. The soul itself, in a moment of clarity, realizes where it is and consciously decides to change. This usually happens after being trapped for a long time, after much suffering. When the soul finally reaches a breaking point, it gets tired, tired of repeating, tired of suffering, tired of being trapped. And in that deep exhaustion, something breaks. The resistance drops, the attachment dissolves, and for the first time since it died, it thinks, I accept. I accept that I died. I accept that this life is over. I accept that I need to move on. And here's something beautiful Cayce revealed. Souls that finally free themselves after long periods of being trapped often become especially effective guides, because they know exactly what it's like to be lost. They know the pain, the despair, the confusion. So when they descend to help other trapped souls, they have an empathy, a compassion, a patience that guides who never went through it don't have. Suffering turns into wisdom. Imprisonment turns into compassion. Mistake turns into purpose. Cayce had a phrase that sums it all up perfectly. Death is merely the transition from one state of consciousness to another. If you live consciously, you die consciously. If you live on autopilot, attached, afraid, resisting reality, you die the same way. And then you make all the mistakes we explored in this video. But if you prepare, if you practice detachment, if you know yourself, if you forgive, if you meditate, if you study, if you practice, if you love, then when your time comes, and it will come for all of us, you won't be afraid. You'll be ready. You'll shed the body like an old coat. You'll look forward without hesitation. You'll follow the true guides because you'll recognize them. You'll go through the review with acceptance and even with gratitude. And you'll ascend, conscious, free, toward the higher planes where your true journey finally begins. Because this life is just the training. Death is graduation. And like with any test, the better you prepare, the better you'll do. Edgar Cayce gave us the manual. Now it's up to each of us to decide whether we'll read it, study it, practice it, or ignore it and hope for the best when the time comes.